This scene that I'm about to show you is one of the most important truths hidden in plain sight of all time. Watch this.
This prophecy is how they enslave us, how they dominate.
Why is this important? Well, the harsh truth that nobody wants to talk about, but I will, is it's exactly what they're doing with the book of Revelation in the Bible. You see, they created the prophecy to play it out and enslave you through it. Why? So that they can create that timeline in this reality through your belief. How could they do that? I'll show you. Watch this.
It hasn't happened yet.
It has happened. You just haven't accepted it.
Well, I don't accept it.
You see that? Did you see that? David, I know that you saw that.
David, the monitor is acting as an antenna. It isn't just receiving tachyons. It is taking a possible future and making it
amplifying it, transmitting it, like a feedback loop.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that's coming from right there.
But it's not just showing people the end of the world. It's giving them the idea over and over and over again until they just accept
time bomb. And we're the ones that lit the fuse.
So what's your point here? You have to realize the future is controlled by our belief, not their prophecy. And some people will argue, did they put it there or not originally? Well, it doesn't even matter because they're just using it as a tool for achieving their goal of controlling us either way. And it's called mass indoctrination. We fell for it over time because think about it. There was no internet. There was no access to other religious traditions easily. And remember, certain narratives about the Bible and Jesus were pushed so hard that either you believed in it or they persecuted you. And the reality is that was the motivation for why Revelation even made it into the Bible originally, according to Dan McClellan, who's a scholar on the Bible and religion. And this is what he said. Justin Martyr, in the middle of the 2nd century CE, suggested that the John who wrote Revelation was the same John who wrote the Gospel of John, which would have given it an awful lot of authority and inspiration. But other Christians thought there's no way these are the same author. The book of Revelation is very awkward and unsophisticated Greek. What changed was Athanasius of Alexandria used the book of Revelation as a tool for structuring power and values and boundaries, particularly in his battles against other followers of Jesus that he considered to be heretics. And he was one of the first to suggest that the beast and the opponents of Jesus in the book of Revelation could be identified as other followers of Jesus. And in his Festal letter that he wrote at the end of the 4th century CE, which became probably the single most authoritative early canon list, he finished the list off with the book of Revelation and then, in the style of the book of Revelation, prohibited adding to or taking away from his list. And his list is more or less what would become approved by the later councils that ended up authorizing the canon. And so I think without Athanasius of Alexandria, we probably don't have Revelation in the canon at all. So that proves multiple points. Number one, Revelation getting into the Bible was not because people believed in it, or that we have historical evidence that it was legit, but because a person of political power offed those who didn't believe in that book of Revelation. And if there's anything I want you to really commit to your memory, it's this. The mass spiritual view right now is not a function of truth, but of power and manipulation. And number two, we know that the intent of Athanasius was not giving us the truth of Jesus' message, but rather to have his version win. So then logically, we have to question the validity of the entire Bible and the books that were added into it and the books that were left out of it on purpose, such as the Book of Enoch. This is a huge point since we know that the intent was not moral of Athanasius, but from shadow. Why do all this? Well, they did it because they believed it. And they were deceived in the same way that in The Lord of the Rings, they were deceived by the ring. In Carl Jung's psychological model, he calls it the shadow. And Jung referred to Christian programming as potentially one-sided, promoting a focus on goodness while suppressing the shadow. Jung believed that the shadow contains the traits and impulses that individuals or groups refuse to accept about themselves. Instead of integrating these qualities, they project them outward onto others. In the case of Christian history, the projection of the evil other onto non-believers or heretics, pagans, or witches. Christianity externalized and still externalizes internal conflicts and preserve the illusion of moral purity. And this is what justified violence as a means of preserving the collective moral identity. Quote from Jung, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. For no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. To become conscious of it involves recognizing the dark aspects of personality as present and real. When a Christian deeply rooted in their interpretation of Jesus' life is presented with overwhelming evidence that challenges their beliefs, such as historical findings, which I just gave you, and the correct interpretations of what Jesus was actually saying given to us by Eastern traditions and understanding symbolism, which I've done a ton of videos on, which we have much more evidence of than for their interpretations, they may experience inner conflict. Just look at my comment section. From Carl Jung's psychological perspective, this conflict arises between their ego's attachment to conscious beliefs and the persona, which are both linked to the shadow. Remember, the shadow holds repressed truths and contradictions. To avoid the discomfort of actually facing this, they just outright dismiss the evidence without actually critically thinking, rationalizing it as a misunderstanding of divine truths, and they just double down on their beliefs. This psychological struggle to just suppress conflicting ideas without actually critically thinking is the definition of cognitive dissonance. And so a Christian, or what I like to call churchianity, might experience cognitive dissonance when confronted with evidence that challenges their beliefs because their faith is often intertwined with their identity and their morality and their worldview. Jung believed that integrating the shadow, or acknowledging and owning one's darker impulses, was essential for individuation, or personal wholeness, and collective peace. I just want people to stop offing each other already because of this ridiculousness. It's still happening to this day. Trust me, it's not just Christians. Look at the Middle East. Quote, "The recognition of the shadow leads to humility and opens the way to charity. When we see our own dark side, we are less likely to project it onto others." And look, I know I've been talking a lot about Christians, and I just want to say I feel like I'm on the same side as them in a sense that I understand that Jesus came here to help us in the same way Morpheus came to help Neo out of the Matrix. But what I'm saying is the way you've been programmed to believe that Jesus came to help you in the nature of you that they told you is not actually true. And that's really hard to admit. I get it. I went to Wednesday night services and Sunday services growing up. I understand how frustrating it can be to realize that what I've been told about Jesus and the Bible is all distorted for money and power. But then when I really sat with it, it's like, why would it not be over thousands of years? If we look at our world today, I can't be cognitively dissonant to say, I see the corruption in everything else, but they left the Bible and Jesus' message untouched. It's damn near impossible that that's true. So what Christians need is shadow integration. Not only Christians, but most people. Integrating the shadow is one of the most important things a human can do, because it's essential for achieving psychological wholeness and living authentically. Without this work, those aspects of ourselves we repress, our fears, desires, and instincts, they don't disappear. They just remain in the unconscious, influencing our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in massively destructive ways. This creates a ton of inner and outer conflict. Inner conflict being procrastination, seeking external validation, self-sabotage, overthinking, etc. Shadow integration is also central to individuation, or the process Carl Jung described as becoming whole and fully realizing your unique potential. Without confronting the shadow, we remain fragmented, cut off from our deeper self, which is the source of meaning, creativity, and balance. To integrate the shadow is to reclaim these lost parts of ourselves, and it removes the distortion so you can hear your inner knowing. Because you already know what that path is. There's just so much shadow and noise that is distorting it, convincing you to do otherwise. Which means you actually reach your goals without self-sabotaging most of the way. True potential is realized when we stop fearing our darkness and learn to integrate it. As Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Damn, bro, that was actually really quite helpful. I'm glad to hear it. How can I learn more from you on this so I can transform? I have an Integrate Your Shadow masterclass that I'll be doing live in just a couple of days to help you and others with this process. I'm going to your page to sign up right now. It's time to truly understand the process of facing these shadows.